Now, 1 in 5 shops is empty in the high streets, and amongst the worst affected areas, Letchworth in Hertfordshire, Wolverhampton and the Kent seaside town of Margate, which has seen more than a quarter of its town centre businesses shut up shop for good. Miranda Shunker reports.
It was once a bustling thoroughfare, but Margate's high street is now dotted with decaying empty shops as the few businesses left try and stay afloat. Florist Zena Barron has watched the steady decline.
They come to Margate to go to the bank and then they're off. You know, it would be nice if they didn't have to pay for the parking, then they might just stop and have a look in some of the little shops.
Margate, of course, is not alone. Many town centres are now dealing with the problems of sky-high rent, as well as the big stores moving out to those free parking complexes and taking the passing trade with them.
You can see how bad it is. It's awful. There's nothing in the town at all. You have to go outside to do the shopping.
It's just like a ghost town eventually, unless they start putting some money into it.
And without it, those derelict shops will soon start to outnumber those struggling to survive.
Well, Liz Peace, who is the Chief Executive of the British Property Federation, joins us now. You represent essentially commercial property owners.
Right.
I suppose it's just the very visible consequences of the recession.
Yes, I think this one's been quite interesting. Unlike other recessions, this has now coincided with the growth of internet shopping. So a huge number of people, of course, are buying what they want over the web. I imagine you do. And the two things coming together have been a disaster for the retailers and, of course, a disaster for the people who own their property as well.
And a disaster for the people who want to go and shop there, because
Yes.
as they were saying, you know, it's like a ghost town and you don't want to go there.
Yeah, and it's not just the high streets, you know, it's the smaller shopping centres, what we call the secondary shopping centres, the things that aren't the Blue Water or the Meadow Hall or that sort of thing. You know, a lot of them are in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of empty shops there.
And of course, then you get the crime moving
And
in
then
as well,
the place,
because it's
yes.
empty.
Well, you get into a sort of spiral of decline, because once the sort of key retailer goes, then lots of the others go as well, and you're left with, you know, an accumulation of empty shops.
Right, so how do we sort that out?
Well, I think there's two things. There's a short-term thing that you can do. I mean, first of all, we need to get life back into these centres. We need to have flexibility about use. I mean, you know, offer them to charities, offer them to other function, you know,
Except
arty
when you
functions,
offer them to, except when a town centre is full of charity shops, it just it feels
well, I didn't necessarily mean charity shops. I think other things that charities can do. You know, artistic, musical, rehearsal space. You know, there's lots of things you could actually do with empty property. Pop-up shops, interesting things that will actually sort of get life
like
back
pop-up
in.
restaurants. Yes, I know they've had that sort of thing.
But you do need a very flexible planning authority, local authority, because there's this whole issue about there being a use for a shop, and if you want a change of use, very often you have to go back to the local planning authority and get permission. You want people who move quickly. You don't want to spend 6 months debating that, or else the opportunity's lost.
Now, what about councils helping elsewhere by, for example, bringing down business rates and forcing landlords not to charge huge rents?
Yes, well, of course, Councils set business rates, but there are also some sort of broad rules set by national government. And one of the problems here is empty rates. And if your premises have been empty for a period of time, you have to start paying rates. So you have a failing business, and then suddenly you have to start paying tax on it, which seems to be a pretty potty thing to have to do.
Right, so that should be
situation worse. Absolutely. What we call empty property rate relief needs to be reinstated for empty properties. You know, there's somehow this assumption that landlords leave their properties empty deliberately. Well, I mean, that's just crazy. You know, if you're a landlord, you want somebody in it paying the rent, making the income, paying your investors, which might be pension funds. So, you know, you want to get the whole thing better propped up.
Liz Peace, thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Pleasure.